working on this desk and knock it out and get it done. So I'm going to select this object here. I need it to go into those pipes up there. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm simply going to go to point mode, and all the points are already selected, but if they're not, go ahead and select them and just move them up into the pipe like so. Okay, so that takes care of that. Let's look at our picture and see what else it is that we need to go ahead and model. Alright, we need to actually go ahead and add some stuff here. We need to add quite a few things to this. We need to add the supports for the glass. So it's basically two cylinders that go from one end of this pipe to the other, and the glass actually sits on top of those two cylinders. So let's go ahead and create those real quick, since those are actually going to be pretty easy to do. Let's go to primitive polygon mesh cylinder. I'm going to knock the subdivisions on the V and the base down to 1. As usual, I'm going to knock the subdivisions up to 24 to make it nice and high res. I'm going to flip it over on its side. I'm going to go into a side view here, a right view. I'm going to move it up to about here. I'm going to knock that radius down to about, because it's got to be pretty thin. It really does. If you look at a picture, those are pretty thin cylinders. Actually, I think this size is going to be pretty good. So let's go ahead and leave it at maybe this size. So we'll go with a nice even number like let's try 0.06. I think it'll work just fine. Okay. And let's change the height. Let me go over here in my camera view, and let's change the height, which essentially is going to change the length until it goes into the pipes right here, and I can see it already went in there, so that's good. That'll work. Now I want to be able to see through this glass a little bit better while I work with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the glass top, and let me hit enter, change the name to glass, which makes obviously more sense. I'm going to go here to material, and I'm going to assign it a new Fong material. And this new Fong material, I'm going to go to transparency, and under transparency right here, I'm going to choose the mix color and make it transparent, not completely, but to about maybe 0.8, something like that. Really doesn't matter at this point. We're not really interested in shaders at the moment. So now I can see through it in my viewport, and there's the support for the glass. Now the support for the glass has to be right underneath the glass because the glass sits on top of it. So let's actually move the support up, and about here's good. Okay, so that's good. Now the support isn't right in the middle. If we look at this, it's actually separated in about thirds. So the support's way over here, and there's another one way over there. And that's actually not exactly at thirds. But anyway, I think you get the idea. In the top view, let's go to this top view, and let's move this over. I'm going to turn off point snapping. I'm going to snap this to about here. Okay. And with this object right here, let me freeze modeling on it real quick. And I'm going to hold Alt, right click, and again symmetrize this globally on the x-axis, and there we go. Little support beams are in place for the glass. So there we go. The glass is sitting right on top of that. Let's go ahead and save. Let's see where else we need to go with this right now. Let's go ahead and create these little disk objects which go at the bottom of the legs. That actually be very easy and quick to do. We just have to make one, and we can use that one for everything. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to primitive. We're going to go to polygon mesh cylinder. Again, knock down the base and the V subdivisions to 1 and 1. We'll knock up the U subdivisions to 24. Let's change the height because it's got to be a pretty thin piece. Let's look at our reference image here real quick. Sort of just this disc-shaped object. So let's make the height pretty small. Something like this is going to work. So something like maybe 0.2, just to use a nice even clean number. Okay, let's close that. Let's go into our top view here. And let's go ahead and position it right here where it's supposed to go, which is right there on that leg. And let's scale it down right here. Say you're only scaling in the Z and the X axis. You don't want to scale in the Y because we already got the height down. And we'll make it smaller because it does have to be pretty small. It's not too wide. And let's no, actually we're gonna have to scale that down a bit. So place it about here. Scale it down a little bit. Okay, the position looks pretty good actually. And let's go ahead and bevel this out. It actually seems to have kind of like this rubbery piece on the edges there. Seems to be like metal with a rubbery piece on the edge. So this is what we're gonna do. Select this polygon, Alt middle click that one to select the entire loop all the way around. Hit Control D to duplicate. Switch to the Move tool. Make sure you switch to local mode. And you'll notice that you're probably going to end up with something like this, which is not going to be too good. Let's go ahead and let's click over here in Transform. And let's turn on Transform Components independently in local mode. And let's move this in the Y-axis. There we go. Beautiful. So we'll get something like this. Now we'll select these polygons right here. Select these right here to select that entire loop of polygons. Control D and move these up just a little bit, not too much. Something like that looks good. Okay. Now I'm going to go to Edge Mode, select this edge, Alt middle click that edge. We're going to Shift select this edge over there, Alt middle click that edge. So we've got this inside edge as well as this outside edge. And now it's real simple. Just right click, bevel, give that thing a nice bevel, maybe increase the distance a bit. Give it some rounding, maybe 3 subdivisions or even 2 will do the trick. Okay, and that's good enough for the little leg piece right there. And it's going to be small and viewed from far away, so you can't see the fastening and whatnot. And that looks pretty good. Okay, now all we have to do is take that same guy. Let's freeze modeling on him. Control D to duplicate him. And let's just move him over here to the other leg. And you can actually just eyeball that and place it right there in the center. And there you go. Now I'm going to select both of these guys. Shift select both of those little leg foot pieces there. Now with those guys selected, I'm going to Alt and right click on either one. Doesn't matter which one. I'm going to hit merge. I'm going to knock the tolerance down to 0. And I really don't care about the UVs and materials at this point, so I'm not even going to check that on. And I'm going to hit delete to delete the originals. So now we have one object. So when we select one, it's actually one solid object. Alt right click, go to symmetrize to get it on over to the other side. Make sure it's set to global reference as well as the x-axis. Close that, and there you go. Alright, so this is starting to come together. The details are starting to come together. The objects are starting to come together. We're building this from multiple objects to go ahead and create a complete desk. So we've got all of this done. We've got all this done up here. We just had to add just a few more details. We need to create this piece up here. We need to create that piece that goes up there. And of course we need to create this tray right here for the keyboard. So let's go ahead and create the tray for the keyboard. I'm going to go to the top view up here. And I'm going to create the tray for the keyboard. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's look at the tray really quick. It goes right in the middle. It's going to be the same basic principle as we did for the glass. I'm not going to use the same curve that we had before. I mean, I could use it. I could recycle that curve. I'm going to go ahead and create a new one. I don't mind. So I'm just going to go over here and holding on Control to snap to the grid. I'll probably just create a curve point right there. And I don't want to go too far. Maybe something like... Let's go to about, let me go ahead and look at my image again. And it seems pretty big. It kind of just goes from here to here. Basically goes from one of these support points to the other one. So that's going to help us to get the width down. So I'm going to go ahead and place a point there, place a point there, place a point there, place a point there, in there, and this doesn't have to be too wide. So I'll do something like this. I think it's going to work out just fine. Now I'll do the last point right there. I'm going to hit right click and go to exit tool. But as you can see from the image, this part has a sharp corner while this part is nice and round. So it's very important that we realize that. So if this curve selected, let me go to modify curve, add point, and I'm going to add a point. And what I'm going to do is add a point right there, and I'm going to add a point right there to make it sharper. So let me exit tool. I'm going to go to point mode. I'm going to select this point, and I'm going to go ahead and snap it. Let me go to global mode here. Snap it to there. Grab this one. Snap it right there. And that'll give us a much sharper end on this side because we have a couple extra control points as opposed to down here where we're going to get a smoother effect similar to what we have in the picture. And remember, it doesn't have to be exactly how the picture shows. The picture's just there for reference. Alright. So now we have the curve. Let's go ahead and freeze modeling on the curve itself. Let's hit Control D to duplicate the curve. And again, we'll type in -1 for the scale in the X. We'll go to Transform. Freeze the transforms on the new curve so that it doesn't have a negative number anymore. We'll freeze modeling on that. And it's really simple. Select both of the curves, go to create curve, go to merge, select this point here once, twice, and it'll merge them for you. We can go ahead and delete the original. We don't need the original, so we'll just hit delete right there, and I'll freeze modeling, and we have this nice, clean, brand new curve here that we can use. Alright, so it's pretty simple. Okay, now with this curve, let's actually go here to our camera view. Let's pull this up to about, I think right there is actually good. Pull it up a little bit more. Really doesn't matter where we place it right now, it's not important. Now if this curve's selected, we're going to go to create polymesh, curves to mesh, and of course same process as before, it creates the object for us. We'll go to extrude. We'll give it some length, not too much. Let's look at our image again. It's got a little bit of thickness, not a lot, but it has some thickness to it. So let's go something like maybe, let's see, 0.1. Actually, yeah, 0.1 actually looks like it works just fine. Okay, let's go to General tab and let's add more contours to this to make it smoother. And I think 8 contours will do the trick. If we do render region, it's nice and smooth. We're not going to worry about offset. We don't need that right now. We don't need that at all for this object. Extrude options are fine. Let's go to bevel. Let's go ahead and give it some depth here, some bevel depth. And we're going to knock the sampling step to 1. We don't really need that many subdivisions for the bevel. It's just adding extra geometry, which we don't need to right now. So that looks pretty good. The bevel looks pretty smooth. It looks pretty good. Maybe I'll lower the bevel depth a little bit. So I think something like 0.2 is going to work out. Oh, I'm sorry, 0.02. Yeah, I think 0.02 works out just fine. And it really does. Okay, so now we got that part basically done. So once we model our keyboard and our mouse, we can actually place it right there. Now, there's something wrong here. If we look at the image, look at the width of the keyboard tray and look at the width of our keyboard tray. It's obviously too long. Now in terms of the depth right here of the keyboard tray, it looks pretty good. It looks pretty dead on. So I'm gonna leave that. I'm happy with that. But I gotta go ahead and take this guy. Let me freeze modeling on him. Let me scale him down to get him to a better size. I think a size like this is gonna work out much better. It looks a lot closer to what we have in our image. So that means that I placed these little support bars. I placed them wrong. So let me select them. And what I'm going to do is go to the top view here. And let me see. I'm going to select these points. I'm going to move them to about here. I think is actually going to work out just fine. And something like this looks pretty good. I'm going to leave it like that. I'm going to hit Y to go to Polygon Mode, select these and delete them. That way all I have to do is right click here, Alt right click, symmetrize that to get on over to the other side. And there we go, the new position is now on the other side, which is perfect. I'm going to select that curve and delete it, don't need it anymore. Okay, now that looks a lot better and looks more like our picture. Okay. Alright, so that part is done. Let's go ahead and let's create these sort of bars that go down and connect with the tray. Because you can see we have some sort of like a cylinder type bars that connect with that tray right there. So let's actually go ahead and create that real quick. That's actually going to be pretty easy to create. We can do that with curves. I'm going to select this object here, and I'm going to select this object here, and I'm going to select, let me see what else I want to select, this object here. I'm going to go over here to isolate selection. I'm going to hit X to go to side view. Alright. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these objects. I'm going to isolate selection here as well in this view right here, because I'm going to need this right view for now. I'm going to go to create curve. I'm going to draw a curve that's going to connect right here with this sort of pipe or whatever. I'm going to place a point there, and I'm just going to draw this out. Just create my curves up to about that point right there. I'm going to exit tool. So that's going to create this sort of little metal pipe that bends and goes up. Now you can't see it going up, but I'm using my common sense that tells me that it has to go up, because if not, this keyboard tray wouldn't have the support it needs. It would probably break and bend very easily if it didn't have this connected right there as well. So there you go. Now I'm thinking of using the connect point tool to add a few more points to this. Let me select this actually. I'm going to make sure that it's snapped to that point, to that grid point. So make sure it's snapped to this grid line right here that runs down this way. Alright, I'm going to take these endpoints and I'm going to move them up. Really doesn't matter how far I move them up. Something like that's going to work out just fine. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to modify curve, add point tool, middle click and drag and hold down control to snap right there. Do the same for this side. Okay. And I'm going to add maybe one more point there and one more point here. I'm going to go to tag point mode, and I'm going to snap that there. I'm going to grab this one and snap it to that line. Perfect. Alright, I'm good to go, and I'm ready to do this. Okay. Alright, looking good. I started my curve from this side, so that's going to be really important. Alright. Now let me go over here to my front view. I'm going to place this curve so it's right here in the middle of the little support piece, which is that one right there. So now it's actually right there in the middle of it, which is perfect. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this support piece and I'm going to steal some of its polygons right here. Oh, I'm sorry, recycle some of its polygons. I'm going to right click on those selected polygons, and I'm going to go to, actually I'm going to go delete. I don't need those polygons there anymore. I'm going to freeze modeling on that. I'm going to go to wireframe mode, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn on point snapping again, and I'm going to snap right there to that point. I'm going to flip this so it's facing down. It's important to realize that the polygons are facing this way, down here, not up. So the direction the polygons actually face is extremely important, and we'll determine if this comes out right or if it comes out wrong. I'm also going to scale this down just a little bit, not too much, just a little bit. And I'm going to select all of its polygons, and you guessed it, right click, extrude along curve, select this curve, and boom, there we go. So I'm going to increase the number of subdivisions. I'm going to go with subdivisions per knot. I'm going to switch back to shaded view to see how that's coming out. It's a little bit faceted right now, so let's crank that up to 10, which I think is going to work just fine. And the size, the width that we changed of the pipe is coming out real good. Let's render that. Okay, perfect. Alright, so that pipe it's done. So Alt right click, symmetrize it to get it on over exactly to the other side. Again, global mode, and the x-axis will be just perfect for that. Now that those pipes are done, we need some kind of a railing system that can connect with those pipes and to our keyboard tray. So let's go ahead and create that. Now we don't have much reference for it. As you can see, we can see that the part of the railing goes connected here barely, and it goes connected somehow to that pipe. So we don't have good reference for that. So for that, you'll have to get better reference. Now I don't have good reference for that. Actually, I'm lying, I do. My own keyboard tray, my desk. Now you might not have one, or you might have one. If you do, good for you. You'll be able to look at the railing system on your own, check it out in real life, see how it looks, see how it works, and I'll give you a better idea of how to model it. If you don't, do some research. Go to your local office furniture store if you can. If you can't, Google's your best friend, and check it out. But you got to find a way to get that reference. When you're going to be a modeler for anything, for characters, for environments, for props like this, you're going to have to be really good at researching reference. So get used to that right now. Alright, now what I need to do is create some kind of a railing that's going to go hooked up on the inside of these pipes, where it can connect with the railing that's hooked up to the keyboard tray. So let's go ahead and do that. So let me take you through this process. Let me go ahead and create a Polygon Cube here. And I'm just going to quickly just jump over here to my front view. My pipes are right here. So I'm going to scale this down a lot. Here's the side of my pipe, and this is the inside part. And we can see that's the inside part, because if we go to this view, we'll see that in fact it's the inside part. What we have to do is scale this down a bit until it fits pretty good. Gonna have to scale that down more. Let's scale in to make it flatter. And let's go ahead and place it right next to it. It can touch it. Doesn't matter if it touches it or it penetrates just a little bit. Honestly, it makes no difference. Just as long as you don't go overboard with it. Okay, so something like this is looks like it's going to work pretty good. So I'm going to select these points here and push them in to make this a little bit more narrow. Something like this. Okay. Now here's what we're going to do. This is the part where it gets kind of cool. Okay. In order to make this look more like a railing, where one piece goes into this piece and is able to sort of just run back and forth on the railing, what I'm going to do is select these vertices up here, push them down to make sort of a flat end down here. Okay. And what I need to do is I'm going to select, actually I don't even have to select, here's what I'm going to do, just to show you how to use a different tool. I'm going to go ahead and use the knife tool. So you can find that here. This is the long way to find it. Go to Modified Polymesh. You can find something called the knife tool. Of course, you can see that open bracket is the shortcut for it. And let's go ahead, click once right here, and where that red line is going to end up, that's where it's going to cut. So hold down Shift to make a straight line, and just left click right there, and it'll cut right there. See that? So I made a cut for you. Now what we do is go to Polygon Mode, select this polygon, hit Control D to duplicate it or to extrude it, pull it up, hit Control D again, pull this up, Okay, something like this will work. Now we're gonna go ahead and select this polygon. Control D and pull this out. That's gonna create our little railing system here. So here's what we're gonna do. Select this edge. Alt middle click this one. That way you select this entire ring. Hit Shift D to split it right down the middle. Select this edge. Alt middle click that edge to select the whole ring. And again Shift D to split it down the middle. Now select this edge and this edge. And now we're gonna scale them away from each other. Hit COG to make sure it's right in the middle and go to global mode. And scale them in the y-axis so they get away from each other. See that? And that's going to make the railing right there for our object. Now, if those two edges still selected, what we're going to do is pretty simple. We're simply going to right-click, bevel that, maybe give it some more distance. Something like that is good. And we'll give it rounding of 1. We don't need too many subdivisions to make that nice round railing type of shape right there. Let's go ahead and render that. You'll see it creates that nice railing shape that we need for our railing. Pretty neat, huh? Okay. So just to add maybe a little more realism to this, so to speak, I'm going to take and I'm going to bevel these outside edges right here, these corner edges. So I'm going to take those, right click, I'm going to bevel that. Give it a little bit more distance. Something like that is good. And I'll give it one subdivision. And there we go. Now that looks really good. That looks more like a railing. And didn't really need too much reference for it. Just kind of used logic, common sense, and looking at my my desk here. It doesn't even really look like this. But this seems to have worked pretty good. And I want to get this part to not be so fat because right now it looks pretty thick. So all I have to do really is select these polygons down here and move them up, and there we go. Now it's thinner, more like the lower part down here, which looks good. Now it's just a matter of scaling the entire object up and getting this railing. Let me maximize this view here. And like I said, it's just a matter of getting this railing to be the same length or whatnot, or at least the length that we want or need to get this to work or to look right. So I'll select these vertices, maybe pull them back here. Select these vertices and maybe pull them to about here, or maybe even to here. And these can maybe go back here, somewhere right there. And I can always change that whenever I feel like it, so it's not set in stone. So I'll freeze modeling on that. Again, Alt, right click. I'll symmetrize this to get it to the other side, and there it is. Now it's on the other side. And you can barely see it, but it's one of those little details that will make a huge difference. It'll say a lot when people see that you model details like this. A good artist, doesn't matter if you're a 3D artist or you paint with oils or you sketch or you're a sculptor. A good artist pays attention to detail, plain and simple. Okay, so now what we need to do is create a similar type of railing system that's going to go ahead and work and go on this piece here. So to do that, we can actually use the railing system we already have to get the right sizes down and whatnot. So here's what we're going to do. Let me go ahead and select some of these points here so I can zoom into this area. So I just selected those points and hit F on the keyboard to frame in on that spot. Okay, what I'm going to do is pretty simple. Let me go to Polygon Mode. I'm going to select this polygon right here, right click. I'm going to extract polygons and keep the old one because I don't ruin the original. Freeze modeling. Move that new polygon out a little bit. Something like that. I'm going to hit U, pick this polygon here. I'm going to Control D to extrude it. And now you see we have a hole on the other side, but that's no big deal. We can fix that very easily. Just go to Modify Polymesh, Bridge Boundary Points and Edges, and bam, there you go. Depending on the distance threshold that you use, it won't reach, or it will reach, and in this case it does reach. So just increase that distance till it fills that gap. Okay, so the cool thing about that is that we now have a piece that mechanically fits with the railing that we already have, so it looks as if those manufactured to those specs. So let's go ahead and do this. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give this I'm going to select this edge and this edge. So just shift select those two edges. I'm going to bevel them to make them nice and round. Maybe 2 subdivisions will work pretty good. Now the distance is too far, of course. I'm going to have to lower that distance a bit. Let me move it closer in, something like this. Okay, that distance is not too bad. You know, it's pretty good. All right. What I'm going to do is select this polygon and pull it out a little bit, something like that. Okay. And let's see what I can do here. Let me take the entire object and I'm going to scale it up so it fits nice and snug inside the railing. And you can see it now, this part interpenetrated through, which is not good. Well, I don't care about that because I'm going to fix that right now. I'm going to go to Edge Mode. And in Edge Mode, I'm going to go ahead and select this edge, Alt middle click that edge, and it should pick the entire loop around, which it did, so perfect. And I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to split edges with split control, and I'm going to push this to about here's fine. I'm going to select this edge, Alt middle click that one. Let me make sure it selected the right ones. Okay, it did. I'm going to right click and I'm going to split control again to about here, which is good. Alright. Now I'm going to select this one right here, Alt middle click that one right there, and it selected the correct edges. Okay, good. You always want to double check. It can be kind of tedious and a little bit time consuming, but the time you're going to save from saving yourself from making a big mistake is going to be worth it. So Shift D to split that right down the middle. Now I'm going to have to go to Wireframe Mode here. I have to select this middle edge that's right there, as well as the one on the bottom, and it gets kind of a little bit hard to get in there, but I'm sure you can do it. It's not that hard actually. So now once you have those edges selected right there that run down the middle of that subdivision that we did, all we have to do is right click, bevel that, lower that distance a bit, maybe give it 1 subdivision for rounding. Okay, and let's go ahead and Control Z. Let's see, the extrapolation is not going to work here. Okay, I need to go back. Let me actually, what I should have done, I need to scale those in. So let me scale those in to something like this. Okay. And I'm actually going to move them a little bit this way. Not too much. Something like that is good. And now I'm just going to go ahead and right click and bevel that. Distance is too far, of course. Let's give 1 subdivision for the rounding. And now it looks like it's 2 pieces that kind of just interconnect with each other like that. And honestly, that's the way that the railing on my workstation desk actually looks. If you want to add some more detail, you could bevel this edge that's right there. I'm not going to do that though, because it's just going to add more geometry, and honestly, when you look at this from a distance, you'll never be able to tell. So save yourself that extra rendering time and that waste of polygons. Okay, now this object here, the one that we just created, that's the sort of railing piece that interlocks with the original piece right there, has to go connected to our keyboard. So let's move it over here. So let's pull it out. So when it pulls out, the maximum it pulls out is probably going to be something like this. Okay, so it doesn't just kind of keep sliding out until it comes out of the desk. And you can see the keyboard tray itself needs to be adjusted. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's move the keyboard tray to about here. So it's right here in the middle of the railing. And we'll put it to about here. Let's go ahead and check in the camera view, see how that looks. Okay, that's not too great. Now all we have to do is scale it down. Go ahead and scale this, scale the keyboard tray down. So it's just, let me go into a front view. It'll be easier to do it in a front view. Now it's kind of hard to scale it at this point because we're zoomed in so close. So we actually go ahead and place that there, and that actually looks pretty good. Actually, that's not bad. I'm gonna go ahead and and actually we have to grab these two objects and move them because they have to be touching this tube over here. So that's actually good. That's a good distance right there. Okay. Now by doing that, we messed up the positioning of this one over here, so I'm actually going to delete it. So we only have one half. That's why it's good actually to symmetrize when you're finished. Okay. Keyboard is not exactly in the best position right now. So let's actually move it forward to about here. And that looks pretty good. Well, you really can't see it. Well, we'll be able to see it when we finish this entire tutorial project. Okay. So now that that's in the right position, let's take these two objects and move them back, and it would slide in something like that. See? Pretty neat, huh? We're not going to animate this. This isn't an animation tutorial, so we're just going to leave it kind of in an extended position right there. Okay. Now that we did that, what we need to do is go ahead and resymmetrize this again. So we'll take this guy, symmetrize him again. Oh, not good. So edit that out. We're going to take this guy right here, right click, alt right click, symmetrize him. Okay. Take this guy right here, hit the period key to symmetrize him as well. And remember, the period key just repeats the last command. And you can see our little railing system here interlocks with itself. Pretty good. Pretty nice, huh? We did that pretty quick and easy. Okay, so here's our little railing system, and it slides in and slides out. Okay, so it's functional. So it looks detailed, looks good, good modeling, pretty economical in terms of polygon usage, and at the same time, it's actually functional. So if someone was hiring you to do some kind of animation with some object like this, where you have to show the object animated and working, there you go. You just learn how to do it. Well, not the animation part anyway. Alright, so now that's done. What I'm going to do is go over here and go to isolate selection to turn everything back on, and there we go. Looking pretty good. There's only one thing that I don't like, and it's the fact that this tube is so fat that it kind of gets in the way of the keyboard tray right here. So what I'm going to have to do is move all of that down. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to select the tubes here for the keyboard. We're going to select the railing system, both parts, and the keyboard itself, and move it down to a position that we're happy with. And I think something like this looks good. A position down here looks much better than where we were before. But now that kind of messes up this area over here. Well, not exactly so. Let's go to our side view here. Good thing that I didn't undo the isolate selection. All I have to do is select all these top vertices for this pipe and just move it up. Reconnect it with the top pipe. Now we go in here into our camera view. There it is. Good as new. Beautiful. Okay, very easy, very quick, very painless. Alright, gonna save that real quick. Okay, that part's done. I no longer need this curve. Let me go ahead and select everything here and freeze modeling. Just to make sure this curve isn't connected to anything. I'm gonna take that curve, and delete it. Don't need it anymore. Okay, it served its purpose, thank you. But I don't need you anymore. Okay, so that's looking good. Let's look at our picture. And let's look at our table. And it's looking very, very accurate, considering the fact that we're not even using exact measurements. We're just winging this. But you can see how quick you can actually wing something and get some accuracy out of it. Okay. By simply using some points of reference as scale models. Alright, so we got that part done. I'm going to end this video here, and in the next video we're going to work on this back part here that has kind of like these square punch holes through it. We'll work on that next. And then we'll work on a tray that's actually going to hold up the CPU tower over here. So let's end this right here, and we'll just pick up where we left off in the next video.